Hello everyone, welcome back to Retro Comms. Gonna be a quick one for you guys today. Just showing off the Kyocera devices in my collection as a continuation of the series I've been working on. So not very many here, but a couple of pretty notable ones. One I'm sure that you guys recognize. But without further ado, let's get right into it with the Kyocera SE44, or the Kyocera slider. Well, SE44 is my preferred name for it because, of course, it's a slider. A vertical slider, to be exact, on Alltel. Tony from Tony's Phone Collection has entered the chat. But, lovely shade of blue. Cute little front display here. Like, this is an interesting looking phone. Now, if I had it charged up and powered on, you could hear that it makes an interesting sound when it slides up. Not many sliders did, but this one, it knew what it was. And oddly enough, has an external antenna. Not many of these phones at the time did, especially not... I don't know of many vertical sliders, or any type of slider for that matter, that had an external antenna. It's got this weird little proprietary charging port, but oddly enough, an LG charger fits in here. Got the headphone jack over here. Can't remember if that was 2.5 or 3.5 millimeter. Lanyard hook up top. And this other side there is completely flat. No buttons, no ports, none of that. And just as a note, this was a gift from Mr. E85. Actually, the first Christmas gift he ever gave me. I still love and cherish this little device. I have another in pieces, but we don't show dead or half disassembled phones on this channel. At least not often. Next up, we have the Kyocera Marble on Virgin Mobile. Pretty plain little device. A couple of function keys there. A little headphone jack. Removable battery cover here. No front display, so we got this little notification LED. And here's the device. Don't have this one charged either. Nothing special going on here. This was definitely a more mid-range entry. And there's its charging port. I can't remember which one exactly it takes, but I am able to charge these up. And here we have the Kyocera Oyster, I guess due to its clamshell design. No front screen here either, not even a notification light. And here we are, just a plain little clamshell, just the same. Was a loud closure there, did not mean to shut that with such force. And a little coaxial port down here. Got its battery covered there. It also has a little lanyard hook. And none of these phones so far had cameras, by the way, in case you guys hadn't noticed. This one does not have a lanyard hook, at least. So, moving right along. Up next is the Kyocera Verve. I believe this one was on Metro PCS. We have up front our main keypad there, and it is also a landscape slider. Nice QWERTY keyboard. I'm sure typing a message on this is comfortable. This is the first Kyocera landscape slider I had seen. I knew they made flip phones, but I didn't know this one existed until it ended up in my possession. And for the first time so far in this list, we have a camera. I believe this one charges with micro USB. I can't remember where it's... Yep, right there. Volume keys over here on this side. 3.5 millimeter headphone jack up at the top. It ran on a proprietary OS. I probably should have cleaned these first. Here we go. It's in decent shape. And next, the S2300, also on Metro. Just a standard, I guess you could call this a BlackBerry style QWERTY messaging phone. Not to be mistaken for a BlackBerry, because this is much chunkier, much yeah, just not as, doesn't have that striking BlackBerry appearance, so calling it that doesn't really feel right, but it is a neat little device. I'm sure this was quite comfortable to type on in its day. We do have a camera. We do have micro USB, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. Function keys over here. And I think this was the SD card slot, maybe? I can't remember what this was right here. Can't really tell. But still, neat little device. And up next, my personal favorite, and I'm sure to many of you the most interesting device here, the Kyocera Echo on Sprint. Let me see if I can get this open with one hand. I doubt I'll be able, but let me try. Oh, here we go. That was nice. There we go. And there it is in its full form, the Kyocera Echo. This is a dual screen device, kind of similar to the thinking behind the Samsung Galaxy Fold, which, oddly enough, now, long story behind this, I happen to have one of these here within meters. This poor thing is busted. I will eventually maybe get parts for it, because it's got a nice camera setup. I can't open that with one hand, but I could with this one. Perhaps this was a better design choice, to have it with this neat little hinge that Kyocera used, rather than... Hold on, I'll put you guys down for a moment. Alright, so I've got both of these open here in front of me. So on one hand, we've got a design that was a little bit ahead of its time, but the multitasking was pretty good for what it was in its day. Now, it can't sit flat like the Fold here, but what it does have are two durable screens. It's probably, or was definitely a little bit cheaper to make, as it didn't have the third screen that the Fold has, or had. This poor thing, I'm not sure how well that's showing up for you guys, but it has seen better days. I'm trying to be very careful with this thing, because that crease, that is a weak point. That I would not trust this as my main phone, even though this thing's center screen is fully intact. I have powered it on. I've played with it. The camera quality is amazing. I even debated filming this video with this device, but given how fragile this center screen is, and being that that's the only fully functional display that I could use without giant black lines running through it, from basically the AMOLED equivalent of dead pixels, that's kind of scary. I don't want to use a screen that my fingernails, which sometimes I admit I need to file them, but a fingernail can scratch this screen. The hinge is too fragile. If I had to use a dual screen phone, I would prefer something like this. But enough about the Fold versus Echo design debate. Let's check out this device. It's got, of course, it's two screens. An interesting hinge design. I will try to close this with one hand, which, remember, I couldn't do that with the Fold. I had to set the camera down, or had to set the phone down so that I could do so. But look, with one hand, I can open and I can close. Just as simple as that, without any risk of hurting that fragile screen in here. And it does have, if we look around, of course, no features on this side of the frame, but over here we've got our 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. This is, I believe, either our SIM or SD card slot. I think that's just SD. Sprint was not, yep, SD card, because Sprint was not big on SIM cards back in the day. Got our volume and power keys, and we've got a micro USB right there. What does the Fold have? It just has a Type-C somewhere along the bottom of the frame. Yep, right there, Type-C. No headphone jack. SIM card slot is somewhere. I think it's like right up here. I'm not as familiar with this thing. But this one has a headphone jack and an SD card slot. And you know how I feel about those, so the Kyocera Echo wins. But tangents aside, such an interesting little device from Kyocera. I do wish I had more of theirs in my collection. Would love to grab some of their more durable Android phones. And just one more look at this hinge design here. A little bit closer if you guys can see that. Just to appreciate, because that's kind of neat. But interesting little device, way ahead of its time, and I wish we could have seen more like this. I know the ZTE Axon M, I think it was, exists, and it executed in a similar way. Would love to have one of those in my collection as well, but Kyocera did it first, and they made a good attempt. Wait, unless the LG Double Play came before. We'll need to look that up, but for just a standard dual screen without a sliding keyboard, Kyocera did it first, and I will give them credit here. Alright, enough of me ranting. One more look at my collection here. Maybe some follow-up on this thing at some point. But once more, a look at Kyocera's. And this is RetroComs signing off.